Hey, let me start off by saying hello.
Hi,
It's nice to meet you.
you too.
Also, I want to say how much I really love the show. It's one of those rare follow-up sequels that actually not only extends the original, but also is an improvement upon it, and it really makes it such an amazing universe of characters. It's a great watch.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you like it.
But before we discuss what we do in the shadows, I'm really curious how you got into the industry. I recently saw your Ken Strasser yo-yo guy videos on YouTube, and they're hysterical. What led to that point? Is it something in the family blood? How did you get into the industry? What drove that?
Absolutely not. It's definitely not in the family blood. In fact, that probably kept me away from Hollywood. Really, was that I had no model figure that ever went out to Hollywood or was really a performer. My grandmother would perform in local theater. And anytime they needed like a child, that she would bring me in to play that character, but it was never something that I saw as a possible career at all. I didn't study it in college or anything. Didn't perform really in any plays in college. Um, a lot of it just came out of always getting people to laugh, whether it was family when I was a child or friends when I got into my teens. And I think that in high school and college, doing silly videos that are absolutely sophomoric if you look back on them. But at the time, I think I was putting in my 10,000 hours or what have you. And that continued into adulthood. Um, and then, coming up with the idea of going on a morning show in character and doing it in a way that the anchor people wouldn't know that I was playing a character. Again, that was just to get my friends to laugh, and out of boredom. So much of it comes out of boredom. And I had no inkling that that could lead to a career in Hollywood. Yeah.
And as I was saying, I saw your Ken Strasser yo-yo master interviews on YouTube, and I think they're just so hysterical, creative, and very original. I was wondering, who are your comedic influences?
They all skew older. Bob Newhart is probably my biggest influence. And just his dryness and timing is very common in the Midwest, but he takes it obviously to a genius level. Um, and so I grew up on watching Newhart, and then when I got older, I'd watch the Bob Newhart show. Tim Conway, again, was probably one of my biggest influences. His ability to come up with stuff on the fly and make other comedians laugh and other performers laugh and break up was always something that I remember thinking as a child, I want to be like that, which is weird. A lot of kids want to be uh, Larry Bird or what have you, and I wanted to be Tim Conway. And then Don Knotts, his take on the arrogant idiot is something that I continually find fun to play. And I think you find a little bit of that in all of my performances. That sense of superiority without any of the goods to back it up.
That's like three faces on the Mount Rushmore of comedy of that era. Great influences, but
Yeah,
unfortunately, they don't come up that much anymore.
which is crazy, and that's humbling because you realize you're not even at their level. And if you talk to younger people in comedy, a lot of them wouldn't know who you're talking about at all. And I think that's a huge shame and a a side effect of our culture right now, which is always wanting new, new, new. You don't go back and realize that the geniuses that came before you. And as I've gotten older, I've in my 20s and stuff, I went back and started researching Jack Benny, Fred Allen, Robert Benchley's writing, and W.C. Fields, who's a huge influence on me, the Marx Brothers, Harold Lloyd, all those huge icons in comedy. And to know that it's a limited amount of people in our business that even know of those people is humbling. I mean, you'll be forgotten. Essentially is what it comes down to.
So back to What We Do in the Shadows. On the series, you play Colin Robinson, who is an energy vampire, which I'd never heard of before until this series. But when I'm watching, I see that a lot of you is in there, that some of the mannerisms and some elements of that character shows up in Colin Robinson. How much did you get to influence the development of the character?
Yeah, it was a pretty wide open playing field for me. Obviously, when you're on a show and there's writers and creators, it's a two-hander at that point. They also inform the character about as much as you do. But in the end, it's my mannerisms and my face, and so I bring in what I think that character traits that I believe that character would have. And early on, Jermaine Clement, who directed 2 of the early Colin-centric episodes, really allowed me to, and in fact, encouraged me to throw away the script, which I kept pushing back on, being like, well, this is funnier than what I'm coming up with and what have you. But I think in doing so, he allowed me the confidence that I can also take part in who this character is and what this character is. So often on a show, you come in as a guest star and they know exactly what they want. And it's your job to deliver that and not to give too much of your interpretation, say, because that doesn't always fit the story. And that's not what you were hired for. But with Shadows, it was very much encouraged to give my take and my twist on the character.
I can see in your previous work that you have great comedic instincts. How much room for improv does this series allow?
Yeah, there's a lot of improv allowed on the show. Paul Sims, our showrunner and head writer, always says it's 60-40, 60% written, 40% improvised. I think that's being very generous. I think some of the actors improvise more than others. As far as what I'm allowed and the freedom I've been given with Colin Robinson, being able to go on these long tangents, they don't really write those out anymore. That's typically stuff that I know something about, or at least a idiot's working of the subject that I can droll on and on. And the reason that is because if I were to just be reading a script and not thinking as I'm going along, oh gosh, what am I going to say next? Inserting an or an it would come off really artificial and he would just be a robot. And that's not at all what any of us wanted, was for him just to be a fact machine. So being able to have that freedom. Also, I'll improvise a lot of reactions and we always get what is written first. And so just like when I was on The Office, we were encouraged to improvise quite a bit, but you always get what's on the page first and then go off of there. And 9 times out of 10, I think what's on the page on this show is funnier than what we could come up with.
It sounds like a great collaboration, working off the genius writing and being able to allow to give you that space to add your touch to it as well. I'm not a big laugher, outside laugher, but with this series, I
Yeah.
find myself laughing out loud so often. It's crazy. I was out sitting on my deck watching it and just cracking up, wearing headphones, and I was just thinking my neighbors must think I'm crazy. One of my favorite parts of the series has to be, and the funniest parts of the series has to be, I guess you'd call it your feeding face, with your eyebrows raised, mouth open, this look on your face. I think it's just hysterical, and nothing else could be going on in the scene, and to see that in the background just has me cracking up. Did you come up with that, or how did that originate?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those instances where the other vampires, when they're feeding, because they have their fangs in someone's neck. How would an energy vampire show that he's feeding? And I think it's kind of this disgusting balance between an orgasm and menacing. And, and I think that's kind of what I had in mind when I started doing that.
Well, it's a thing of beauty. It's ugly as sin, but it's a thing of beauty,
Yeah, yes.
because in the background you're always sitting there with this look on your face, and it's just unsettling.
Yeah, yeah. It's repulsive. Definitely repulsive.
I was so bummed out when they killed off Colin Robinson. Now, maybe I'm naive, but I really was worried that that was the last of your character. And then you come back, which was such a, at the end of the season, which was such great news. How long in advance did you know about the demise of your character and what they had in store for you all throughout all season 3?
No, not at all. The writers really play the cards close to their chest because things change all the time. And I found out with everyone else at the table read. But at the same time, I wasn't worried because on a show like this, which is basically a cartoon or a modern take on the Munsters, anything can happen and be explained away. No matter how ridiculous or ungrounded the storyline is. And so I wasn't worried about that I was written off. I was concerned though about, okay, now I have to play a baby on a show that's pretty beloved by fans, and our fans are very vocal. And am I going to screw this up now? Am I going to ruin the show with my performance? And to that end, my only request really was don't make Colin cute. I don't want Colin to be like, Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen on Full House saying "radical dude," that type of stuff that I think would have ruined the show. To that end also is, well, it's my 40 something doughy mug on a kid. It's not going to be cute no matter what. So,
As a parent, I recognize all of those stages that your character has to go through, and I was really impressed because it's what you deliver is not just one note. There is these subtleties as you get older and as you change. So what was it like revisiting all those stages, and how did you prepare for them?
um, I it was interesting to go back and kind of revisit. The one I remember most obviously would be my teens. And that's a pretty good portrayal of where I was at in my teens. I was sulking a lot and listening to the Smiths and stuff like that. And I think that Colin as a teen is just as emo and confused and annoyed at everything and frustrated in his situation. Um, tween Colin was fun because I finally got to sing and dance, which I thought this character would relish and always want to do. Musical theater is an easy punching bag because there's so much over enthusiasm amongst musical theater fans, which I consider myself one of, that it can become almost cult like. And that genuineness I thought was really fun to portray with Colin because kids are very genuine. They're likes, they're not putting on a show when they're telling you about Roblox or Minecraft or whatever. They're actually very enthusiastic about it. So that was a fun twist for me to get to play. Toddler Colin, there wasn't too much for me to give a huge spin on that. But they were all really fun. As far as research, it was a lot of YouTube videos of toddlers singing, dancing, teenage meltdown, toddler meltdown. There's a scene where as I'm in my 40 something body, but I'm still a tween and I'm having a pillow fight. And I get frustrated with one of the kids because they're cheating and I start crying. And I didn't want that to come off as like, oh, this adult's acting like a child. I wanted it to I did want it to feel like this child in a man's body is crying. And so, you try to play that stuff as straight as possible too. But it was interesting. I mean, it was a fun challenge to get to try to play them all and have them ring true at the same time.
But you play it to perfection. You mentioned Roblox. That's one thing that I had to deal with as a parent, especially during the whole COVID schooling from home bit. It would be every day Roblox conversations, how many Robux they have. And my daughters became their own type of energy vampires, starting these conversations. And when they did, I would just drain me. And that I saw that right in your character to the point that when young Colin is tween Colin is discussing it, I felt myself being drained right through the TV. Is that something that you brought to the character?
No, that was Paul Sims. A lot of that came from him and his two children. And he recorded some of those and sent them to me for me to kind of get the patter down, the rhythm down. I don't have children myself. And so, yeah, a lot of that was informed by his own children.
That's great. And it just works so well all the way through. It could have been overplayed, but you never did that. By doing so, you provided so many great laughs.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm such a critic of comedy, like, and I always perform it how I would want to see it, and that's all you can really do. And that's not to say I'm right or wrong. It's just I want to make sure it's what I would want to see, and if other people like it, thank God. But yeah, overplaying it would have driven me nuts. So, and again, on this show, I'm lucky that they understand that and let us kind of weave our way through these characters.
Before we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you really quick, what was it like working on Better Call Saul? It's an amazing series. It had to be an honor.
Yeah, that was a very, very special show to be a part of. So,
did you watch the finale?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. No, those guys have taken, TV to a different level, and I hope we see other people doing the same.
Yeah, it's really amazing what they accomplished there. Like with What We Do in the Shadows, to go into something that's so beloved and to take that and to build off it is a real challenge. And with this one, a prequel to a series that had as much acclaim as Breaking Bad, it's just insane how they can possibly go and do that with such like precision.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question. It's a simple one. What are 3 words you would use to describe Colin Robinson?
he's repugnant, annoying, endearing.
Fantastic. I like it. Congratulations on the series, and
Thank you so
congratulations
much.
on your work on the series. I absolutely love it. Looking forward to season 5. Have a great day.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You have a good day.